Welcome everyone. Saturday morning, we are doing our Building Board Diversity first webinar, and we're excited that it's going to be hosted and presented by Dominic Watson. So he is the Springfield Black Chamber of Commerce president. He's also a labor lobbyist for the American Federation, State, County, and Municipal Employees. He has spent more than a decade emphasizing the importance of revitalizing the community through economic empowerment and civic engagement. And what makes Dominic a little bit different is his passion and knowledge for all things community. So we are excited to have you with us, Dominic. I'm going to let you take it from here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel. And I'm excited about the opportunity to partner with this Building Board Diversity effort. The forefront, Diversity Community Foundation for the Land of Lincoln, a United Way of Central Illinois. They're doing amazing work, collaborative activism. Is exactly what they're doing. So I commend you for this effort, Rachel, and I'm excited to lead this this presentation. So collaborative activism and Black economics. And again, thank you for the intro, Rachel. Again, my name is Dominic Watson, and many know me, know how opinionated I am as it relates to community, but most important, at the forefront of that community is equity as it relates to Black economics. So I've dedicated the bulk of my professional life towards advancing Black economics in our community. So I've grown up in Springfield. My mom was a small business owner here in town. I became a young business owner at the age of 22. And again, at 36, I've done quite a few things as it relates to the business community. So I have a different standpoint and a different view on how we can push the Black community forward. And again, it encompasses economics and how we can collaborate to advance that. So next slide here. All right, so just so we're clear, I wanted to get this out the way completely. Again, some of these definitions and some of these you're already aware of. Social privilege is a special and unearned advantage or entitlement used to one's own benefit and the detriment of others, right? It can be conscious and unconscious. White privilege, again, that's a buzzword right now. It's met with kind of negative connotation, but white privilege is not the suggestion that white people have never struggled. Again, I want to repeat, white privilege is not the suggestion that white people have never struggled. Instead, white privilege should be viewed as a built-in advantage separate from one's level of income or effort. Microaggressions, just subtle, unconscious, express prejudice towards a member of a marginalized group. All right, so that can take shape in the form of, oh, that Black person talks white. I've gotten that throughout my entire life. Oh, Dominic, you don't look like how you sound. So that's microaggression, marginalization. Individuals being blocked from various rights and opportunities and resources. We'll get into that some later. Conscious bias or explicit bias is extreme, overt negative behaviors, right? So racism falls into that category. Unconscious bias or implicit bias, prejudice, right? Prejudice against one group of people. So again, we want to just clear the air and get that out the way, just so we can move forward, right? So again, these definitions are just an opportunity to fill you in, right? To fill you in, and again, we'll get into more of the, what's right, what's wrong, how we can utilize some of these advantages to move forward and advance the cause. So again, we're digging in right now. So do not gentrify our fight. Do not gentrify our fight. As an ally, right? As an ally, we do not need you to validate our feelings. That's not allyship. You don't need to validate our feelings. Allyship is trying to understand and working with us to advance the cause, right? You cannot dictate where we should focus our energy. You know, we're seeing this a lot nationally as well as locally. We have those who are diehard allies, right? But they're focusing their energy and attention elsewhere, right? They're not listening to those who are marginalized, us, right? They're deciding what's important for us, right? So again, keeping with the theme here, do not gentrify our fight. As an ally, again, you cannot dictate where we should focus our energy. And you can only control your actions. First and foremost, I mean, we're seeing this nationally, this national outcry right now. And oftentimes in our own circles, we're not even challenging our families. We're not even challenging ourselves. We're not even challenging our workplace. So understand, you can only control your actions. So the things that you do day to day can greatly impact and show that you're a strong ally. But do not gentrify our fight. Again, we do not need you to validate our feelings. We cannot dictate, or you cannot dictate where we should focus our energy, and you can only control your actions. You can only control your actions. All right, numbers. I'm a numbers guy. I love numbers. So these are national Black median household incomes compared to white households. So numbers don't lie. This is a snapshot that was taken from the Economic Policy Institute. Again, it looks at current population survey, annual social and economic supplement, historical poverty. So over the last 20 years, it's snapshot, actually the last 18 years, because they do these updates every few years. So the Black median household is about 59% that of whites. I want to say that again. The average median household income is about 59% of that of whites. So we're looking at, and let me move my mouse here, but we're looking at 41,000 or 42,000 compared to 71,000. Again, Black median household income is about 59% that of whites. The disparity in terms of wealth as opposed to income is much worse. Black median wealth is about 16% that of whites. And I forgot to mention, you know, if you have questions, if you want to chime in, feel free to do so in the chat box. Rachel and I will monitor those throughout the presentation, but you know, if I don't see a question, we'll get to it. And Rachel, feel free to chime in if there's something that needs to be responded to right now. So.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking that pause. So I don't see anyone with their hand raised, but I made the comment that those statistics are very scary. Oh, it looks like Paul has his hand raised. Paul, let me get you set up here so that you can. There we go. Go ahead, Paul. Once you unmute, you should be good to go.
Brother Paul Mark, how we doing?
Yo, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, the question is, you said income is one thing and wealth is different, and there's a greater disparity. Go into wealth just a little bit.
Well, wealth is typically your net worth. So interestingly enough, those who are considered in poverty, right, white and Black. So white poverty, the average net worth is upwards of $10,000 to $20,000.
Raise my hand on there.
Oh, let's mute real quick.
Oh yeah, let me mute Paul. There we go. Go ahead.
So again, your wealth is they use a bunch of different variables, but I'll keep it simple. Your net worth, right? So your revenue minus your expenses, and also including in that are assets, right? So the average low income family, right, white family, has about between $10,000 and $20,000 in net worth, right? As opposed to Black households, the average Black household has zero net worth, zero. And we're talking about low income, right? Low income. So, I mean, the comparisons are really, really, like you said, Rachel, really scary. And to your point, Brother Polmark, the wealth gap is even bigger, right? I mean, you're taking the same exact, demographic, and the only thing that's different is race. And there's a $20,000, $10,000 to $20,000 difference in net wealth. I hope that answered your question.
It looks like that's the only question. That was very helpful. Katie did add a comment, and she said the systemic suppression of generational wealth plays into all of it. It's something that is very interesting to me. Absolutely.
Thank you, Katie. And iSpy is doing great work to try to level that playing field as it relates to entrepreneurship. So another highlight of numbers. Again, numbers support and drive everything. So this is Sangamon County, and thank you to Katie. It's actually a perfect segue. Thank you to Katie for assisting in building out these numbers locally. But the minority-owned businesses represent only 15% of the total number of firms in Sangamon County. And again, this is taken from the Department of Employment Security in 2012. We don't have the numbers yet for the most recent analysis. 25% of the total firms in Sangamon County have paid employees. Of those paid employees, only 5% are minority-owned, right? Of those who have paid employees, only 5% are minority-owned, and 1% are Black-owned. 1%. So minority-owned businesses represent only 15% of the population, 15% of the business population. And then you drive that number even further down when it comes to Black-owned, and it's less than 10%, less than 10%. And if you look at these numbers and look at the chart, it's clear that there's discrepancies, right? There's discrepancies as it relates to minorities, non-minorities, even minorities, even Blacks as opposed to all other minorities, right? So again, the takeaway from this is only 5% of those 25% who employ individuals, right? Only 5% are minority owned, and 1% are Black owned. 1%. And that's in Sangamon County. That's in Sangamon County alone. So, it's important to highlight that the economics, right? The economics, whether it's locally or nationally, are not in the favor of Black-owned businesses or Black households, right? So a few of our realities, right? A few of our realities, and I'm really trying to dive into this as quickly as possible because I really want to engage you guys and really want to hear your perspective on some of what we talked about. So our realities, right? And this is controversial. This is controversial, but I stick by a lot of the conversations and a lot of the points that I have. Failure to fully implement integration is the greater culprit, right? That's the greater culprit. America has never fully integrated its society and has left many in the Black community out of the economic loop. And I just want to illustrate some of the instances, some of the examples. Lack of bank and venture capitalists to lend to us and invest in our business ideas, right? So I've seen various studies, and the key wealth builder, right, across all communities is entrepreneurship, right, and business. You know, there has been this push over the last decade or so, and probably even further than that, about ownership. You know, owning your own business, expanding your business, you know, multiple streams of income. You know, we live in a millennial generation where you know, we don't stay anywhere too long. It's all about fulfilling our purpose and monetizing our purpose. So again, if as Dominic Watson, who owns a reputable, who wants to start a business, right? I might have the same exact business plan as my white colleague or white counterpart, right? I'm going to be less likely to be invested in, right, than my white counterpart. Hands down, no question. And that's right here in the Springfield community. Lack of public and private institutions that shape opportunity in an equitable way. Let's think about PWIs, right? Predominantly white institutions, right? I cannot as a, and we've all seen this, anyone who is from a marginalized community has seen, they go to an institution of higher education, and they, you know, the first couple weeks is like culture shock, right? You're like, where are the Black people? Where are these individuals? Or, you know, you go to an institution, PWI, and, you know, all the Black and brown people are congregating together, right? And they're building alliances, you know, to weather the storm, so to speak, right? And then, you know, the institution doesn't fully understand how to support the minority population. So in turn, they just, you know, seek funding to allocate resources to programs that don't work. We've seen that time and time again. And then another example is lack of inclusive workplaces. This is huge, lack of inclusive workplaces. We're not even gonna get started on hiring practices or just leveling the playing field with job opportunities, but lack of inclusive workplaces. Once we get there, right, we see all these microaggressions, all these perceived unconscious bias or even conscious bias, and you know, alienated almost as soon as we walk in. You know, either we're overly welcome or underwelcome, right? There's no middle ground, and oftentimes, you know, that leaves a bad taste in our mouth. So next slide here. More realities, redlining. A lot of people, this term is not new. A lot of people are aware of this, but we've seen it right here in Sangamon County, and I'll point out a perfect example or a few examples here shortly, but I want to give you the definition. Discriminatory practices or practice that puts services, financial or otherwise, out of the reach for residents of certain areas based on race or ethnicity. It can be seen in the systematic denial of mortgages, insurance, loans, and other financial services based on location, rather than on an individual's qualifications or credit worthiness. Interestingly enough, you know, we see this all the time, specifically just in the insurance world in general. How many of you have lived on one side of town and, you know, it may be a lackluster part, you know, and we're not going to point out any area specifically here in town, but I'm sure we've all had our rates adjusted after a move into a more palatable area. So we see that all the time, or we see, you know, you drive a certain car, you know, or you look a certain way and you're judged accordingly. Mortgages as well. You know, oftentimes the process of underwriting allows for minority groups to be to be challenged a little more. We have to do you know, A through Z as opposed to A, B, and C. All right. And one of the things that we often don't realize is disinvestment often leads to displacement, followed by destabilization. Again, I wanna, that's a lot. That's a loaded sentence there. or a loaded statement, but disinvestment often leads to displacement followed by destabilization. I want you guys to really think about that, right? We're seeing almost in every predominantly Black community or Black neighborhood in America, you can see this, right? Disinvestment leading to displacement, right? Followed by destabilization. So let's look at it from a historical context, right? Right here in the city of Springfield, we saw in the early 20th century, early 1900s, we saw areas of town, that were Black areas of town, levy or levy, depending on who you ask, parts of Southtown, key areas within the Black Springfield community, even, business districts. Levy was a business district, dating back to pre-race riots and after. And we saw, entire communities, specifically the Levy business district, level to build affordable housing. The John Hay homes, which ultimately led to Madison Park Place, right? But you had historic Black business districts. And now, fast forward, right, we're seeing the rail relocation project, which is deepening the divide, and all of the services and all of the quality projects are going on the other side of the 10th Street corridor, the west side, right? And so that's furthering the divide as it relates to the Black community, right? Specifically the east side. So, this is a part of systemic, and structural racism. Next slide here. All right. So equity theory, tongue-tied. All right. It was developed in the 1960s by behavioral psychologist John S. Adams, right? So it's a business concept, but it fits perfectly in our discussion today. So based on the principle that people's actions and motivations are guided by fairness, and that discrepancies in that fairness will spur them to disengage, give up, or even result to more uncontrollable actions. And again, I really want to focus and really want to highlight that last piece: give up or even resort to more uncontrollable actions. All right. We're living in a time where a lot of the things that have been happening for the last century or more, right? People are now able to broadcast that, right? We have smartphones, we have technology in our hand, but a lot of things that are happening are nothing new. So, you get generations and generations in, and now kids growing up are completely tired of it, or millennials are completely tired of it because we've seen it, we've experienced it, right? So, which again causes us to either disengage, give up, or resort to uncontrollable actions, right? Rioting, looting, and picketing. But again, it's easy for someone not from our community to say, well, you shouldn't be doing that, instead of trying to understand why. The why, right? A lot of times the reaction is so easy instead of trying to understand the why. So equity happens when there's perceived fairness, right? Perceived fairness. And that perceived fairness is not, coming from someone who's on the outside looking in. It's coming from me as a minority, me as a Black man, right? It's my perceived fairness, right? And that's equity, right? Oftentimes, and again, it's important to highlight, the allyship, right? I told you guys earlier, we do not need you to validate our feelings. You cannot dictate where our energy should go, right? So it's our perceived fairness, right, that drives equity, not yours. Not yours. Just to be absolutely clear. All right. Historical call to actions. And a lot of people overlook, things that don't necessarily resonate with them as it relates to any moment in history. Any moment in history. It's just human nature. So in 1968, our Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Gave his world-renowned speech, "I've been to the mountaintop." And he called for followers to strengthen Black institutions and businesses by moving their money away from the white-run businesses or white-run business and banking establishments and depositing their dollars into Black-owned institutions. This idea that buying and banking from Black-owned businesses would empower the Black community and close the racial wealth gap. And it has been widely embraced. Historically, a diverse array of Americans, including Booker T. Washington, Marcus Garvey, even our former president, Richard Nixon, and then recently our great president, Barack Obama. And so, interestingly enough, I was during my research in preparation for this presentation, I looked up because I was intrigued as it relates to Richard Nixon, supporting Black empowerment. And interestingly enough, he formed the first ever Office of Minority Economic Opportunity. Again, I'm butchering the acronym, but essentially that's what it was. But interestingly enough, he didn't fund it. He did not fund the department that he created. No funding. And so instead, he used an approach of having historically white-run institutions create funds. And again, this never got any traction, but he wanted white investors to come in and supply money. That way, Black institutions or Black businesses could have access to dollars, right? But never funded any of the outreach, never funded any of the projects. And again, we know what happened in the long run. So there's always been historical call to actions. Historical call to actions. Again, in MLK, I've been to the mountaintop. He called for followers to strengthen Black institutions and businesses by moving their money away from white-run businesses and banking establishments, right, and depositing into Black-owned institutions. And interestingly enough, this was 52 years ago, right? And there's a renewed call for a lot of those actions. So this is a historical call to action, historic call to action that is now being revived. So now what? Now what? And interestingly enough, I want to get into this. We saw this past summer at the local level, right? Post George Floyd, right here in Springfield, we saw, leading up to a peaceful youth demonstration and rally, we saw, I can't even find the words to describe the amount of scare tactics that were used as it relates to our community, the Black community, coming together to talk about and rally around injustice. We saw local media, local leadership, even Black leadership say that, it was almost like they were preparing for some type of Armageddon. Close your businesses early. Close downtown down at 2 p.m., right? We shouldn't be marching. We shouldn't be doing all these things. They're going to burn the place down. They're going to do all these things. And lo and behold, we came out, thousands of individuals came out and worked together in a peaceful fashion to highlight injustice. Just think about that. think about that. Leading up to that, right? The 48 hours leading up to that peaceful demonstration. Think about the amount of ridicule, the amount of resistance or counter resistance at that point was displayed from those in our city. Just take a moment to think about that. How did you feel about that? How did you feel? Sometimes we can look in the mirror and challenge ourselves. Right? Were we scared? Right? Were we not supporting the movement because we were afraid to be associated with individuals? Were we deciding that protesting was not the right way to go about? And I want you to understand that everyone has a role to play in order to better our communities, the US. Everyone has a role to play, right? Protest, right? Our country was built on protests. We shouldn't fear protests. We should embrace it, actually. And there's different forms of protest, right? Which is different forms. So youth coming together to put together a rally that's peaceful should be embraced, right? And talked about as a moment in history. I'm a podcast guy. I was listening to a podcast in regards to the Kennedy administration during the March on Washington. And it was talking about how Robert Kennedy had put CIA, or I'm sorry, it maybe wasn't CIA. It was someone who worked for the White House outside. First of all, they didn't want the March on Washington to happen. They thought it was going to be very challenging to control the crowd, right? They took drastic actions and tried to actually prevent it from happening, right? And then when they saw that they couldn't stop it, right, they decided to contain it. So they literally had someone overseeing the power for the stage. In case it got rowdy, they were going to cut off whoever was speaking. And the podcast is just an interesting take. It's a history podcast, and I'll try to find it and see if Rachel can circulate that. But again, we have to embrace protests. We have to figure out ways to move forward from a collaborative standpoint, because collaborative activism is the only way forward. And one of the most equitable ways forward is to balance the playing field as it relates to economics. So Black economics. Going to the next slide here. So here's some of the collaborative solutions that you can pursue daily, and we're talking about our allies. Some of this is low-hanging fruit, quote unquote. Check on your Black friends, colleagues, and neighbors. Start with, hi, I've been thinking about you. How are you? And be prepared to listen. Oftentimes we forget about how important listening is. Listening. That helps you understand experiences if you just listen. If you manage Black people, right? If you manage Black people, be sensitive to the trauma we are experiencing. And there's a reference to this article, this good read. Your Black colleagues may look like they're okay. Chances are they're not. So check out that article. And most importantly, do not remain silent. Use your voice and platform to start and facilitate constructive conversations, whether that's within your family, neighborhood, or workplace. If someone makes a racist remark or shares their limited view, ask them why they feel that way. Again, you have the ability to control your own actions, right? So what you do, right, in situations where your values and your views are challenged will resonate, right? And I know that's not a feel-good action, right? That's an uncomfortable conversation. It's so easy for us to be silent, but that's not allyship, right? So these are collaborative solutions that you have the power to do daily, right? So all of the things that that are listed here are things that you can do daily that are in your control. Collaborative solutions as it relates to the community. All right, support and participate in Black-led advocacy groups. I mean, you know, senseless plug, the Black Chamber, we're a Black-led advocacy group centered around the business community. So you can support and participate. We have events, we have opportunities to donate, to volunteer. So just support and participate. Urban League, NAACP, Faith Coalition for the Common Good, a lot of those groups are doing great work. Be present and be aware. Be aware. You know, I look at, you know, oftentimes, and this gets back to, you know, what happened a year ago with the housing project. You know, I really think if we understood each other better, we could have come up with a solution that was equitable for everyone. But instead we embraced, or we didn't embrace, or we challenged each other, and contended that, well, you know, this should happen just because we feel like it's a project for a targeted population, instead of looking at the decades of disinvestment in that side of town and trying to figure out, okay, how can we come together to ensure that everyone, and it's not, you know, someone from outside the community deciding what's best. You know, you have to bring people together to come up with the solutions. And it, again, a part of this is being present and being aware. And oftentimes you have to challenge the status quo. You have to challenge the status quo. So you can't be content with, well, that's the way things have always been done, right? Challenge the status quo. And again, support and participate in community-led advocacy groups, be present and aware, and challenge the status quo. So this is big for me, right? As the head of the Springfield Black Chamber of Commerce, as a business owner, you know, in my line of work, it's so important to support and invest in Black brands. And I need investment, right? Black business owner, Rachel needs investment. You know, I don't know any Black business owner that doesn't need investment, whether it's patronizing or just supporting as a whole, sharing, you know, a post, you know, just simple stuff. So, you know, we have the Buy Black here. You know, one of the things we've been doing from a Black Chamber standpoint is just trying to roll out the 217 Buy Black campaign, and we've gotten a little bit of traction, but it's all around supporting and investing in Black brands, businesses, restaurants, etc. And interestingly enough, you know, we list in here startup accelerators and incubators. And, you know, we have an incubator in town that's doing great work as it relates to trying to target minority population. There's room for improvement, as we all know, but they're aware of that, and they're reaching out to minority-led organizations to establish those partnerships. So, you know, they're a part of that investment. They're not Black-led, but again, they target Black populations, and they should be invested in. Oftentimes we don't necessarily look at this, but make a financial contribution to a local, preferably Black-led organization that is working for a more equitable Springfield Sangamon County, right? So, that could be, again, the Black Chamber, the Springfield Urban League, the Frontiers, Divine Nine organizations who have a 501c3. That can be quite a few organizations that you can contribute throughout the course of a year. And most importantly, a lot of especially non-for-profits, you can write that off. So those are opportunities for you to invest and invest and put your money where your mouth is. And one of the biggest things that we always hear our white counterparts talk about, as it relates to defending themselves about Black issues. Well, I have Black friends. I don't see color. There's all these things that they use to validate their experience, right? But are you investing in those Black friends, right? Are you supporting them? Are you listening to them? And there's a clear typo in here, but what the intent was to say, invest in your Black friends. And we're almost done with the presentation, but I really, really want to focus on giving enough time to have some Q&A, and then also some remarks from Rachel to close out. So Q&A. This is an opportunity for us to just have a conversation. What did you think about some of the points that we made here? How do you see yourself pushing to make Springfield a better place for all? Again, there's all types of efforts that are taking place right now, including the Next 10. We have projects that are taking place all around town to ensure that the Black community is thriving, but we need opportunities on the east side of town. I talked about the rail relocation project. I talked about how it's deepening the divide here in Springfield, and there's not many resources that are being allocated to ensure that those who are going to experience that deepened divide are put on a path to be successful. And so, it's not good enough for you to receive dollars and expect groups of individuals to come to you, right? You have to go into the community in which you're trying to serve. And oftentimes we overlook that. We just think that, okay, now that I have these dollars, I can target this population, but yet we don't want to partner with any organization that's targeting those individuals or working on the ground to assist those individuals on a consistent basis. And we have to be more cognizant of the fact that, at some point these dollars are going to dry up. So Rachel, I see that you came on, so I'm assuming there's a question.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm getting some feedback there. I'm on Facebook and everything else. So I'm seeing multiple comments.
Perfect.
So let's see, we get a lot of great things going on Facebook. People saying, I love to support Black. Great that you use that as one of your examples. So someone asked, how do we join the Black Chamber? I used to be a member a long time ago. So how do folks join?
Okay, that's perfect. So we relaunched our website a couple weeks ago. So you can go to springfieldbcc.org and you can go to membership, and it has various memberships from a student membership all the way up to a corporate membership. So it's as simple as just entering your information into a form, and it automatically sends the email to the Black Chamber, and we go from there. But there's various memberships, including student, or young professional or professional, all the way up to a corporate membership.
Awesome. So then another question is that as a business owners, typically, especially the Black and Brown communities, don't always know where to go to get information. So such as bidding, becoming a state preferred vendor, bidding with the state, just learning how to navigate the space, even how to ask for money. And sometimes that holds them back. So how would you recommend that folks just gain that knowledge and information to even be able to know where to go to ask for resources?
Absolutely. So there's there's various opportunities and ways to seek knowledge. Obviously the Black Chamber is a resource. There's also the Office of Minority Economic Empowerment or Economic Opportunity out of the DCEO umbrella. You can go to the SBA, you can go to or Small Business Administration website, you can go to the Small Business Development Center website. We have a lot of boots on the ground. I believe we have some local instructors who specialize and have contracts directly with the state to administer those services. So it's all about networking. It's all about, again, there's an old saying that your network is your net worth. So, you could start by viewing the Black Chamber of Commerce website and start there. If you don't find what you're looking for, again, you could simple Google. Again, go to Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunities, Minority Empowerment page, SBA, SBDC. There's a ton of different resources at your disposal. But we do
Great.
have to get better at getting that information out. I completely agree.
Awesome. And then it looks like Paul has a comment. Paul, I am going to ask you to unmute there, and then you can go ahead and make your comment.
Okay, I've unmuted. Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good job. Excellent presentation, Brother Dominique Watson. You went through unconscious bias, or I always say unnoticed or unconsidered bias. Number one, when the power structure is looking at it, something to be gained or not gained, unless it's within their realm of gain, they don't even consider it. Also, I went further in, you mentioned underwriting loans. I just made a few notes here as you was going because it was just superb what you spoke on. Underwriting of loans and mortgages. Understand this, when it comes to money, all institutions go with risk reduction. Why should individuals want to support an economic risk and they know they've done nothing to give us any financial stability? You talked about equity, that you said fairness. As soon as I heard the word fair, I learned in undergrad in my business classes, the instructor said the only thing that's fair is the state fair, the world fair, and the county fair. Oh yeah, they told us don't think, because I brought it up once, that's not fair. They said the only thing to think about when it comes to fairness is think about the end result, the performance, profitability, and power. They said that's what fair is about. So that was excellent you brought that in. When we talk about a movement, a reality of banking and buying with black banks, we did that at one time. Mm-hmm. But what happened was the mindset of the people was changed through integration. At one time, we had our own movie house, we had our own banks, we had our own restaurants, but then they made us believe, or we believed that we could go and participate in the majority population stuff, and it's okay because we're glad we had a sit-in, we're glad they allow us in their stores, not realizing the power was within us. We should have stayed in our own stores. But let me continue. I only had a couple other notes and I'm gonna get off. Also, understand when change comes about, you always are met with resistance. Right. In fact, the change model, to move from a one position through change to a better reality, you will have resistance. So we've got resistance on both sides of that coin, not only from the power structure, but when they're black folks ourselves, because we got a mindset. Some people don't even want to be called black. We got a mindset to deal with that's been instilled for generations as a subconscious and unconscious set of way of being. Why should you mention protests and said this country was founded on protest? Well, talk to Crispus Attucks. He was one of the first one killed in Boston, the brother that was shot at protest. Protest has never been accepted by the power structure. So for us to think that it's going to be accepted now readily, protest, nah, not going to work. Looked at facilitate constructive conversations. First, do it with yourself before you do it with others. Right. Because we are all products of what we think. Our conscious and subconscious mindset is very powerful. So if we could just get people to sit down and really think to themselves with a self-talk, we would win. And then also, don't think people say, if you don't see it, it don't exist. We can't see coronavirus, and it's existing. We can't see air in its existence. Just because people say, oh, we don't see your plight or we don't understand it, don't mean that it's not deadly. So don't listen to the power structure when they tell you, oh, I couldn't see that, or I didn't know that, or I couldn't understand that. They don't have a reason to. If they've got a reason to through discussion, that's good. I just made a couple notes there on my paper, sir. You were outstanding and superb. And thank you very much for your presentation.
I appreciate you. And for those of you who don't know, Dr. Paul Hudson is a professor of business over at Lincoln Land Community College, and he's also the pole mark for the local alumni chapter for Kappa Alpha Psi, of which I am a noble brother of. So thank you for chiming in. Any other comments?
Dominic, looks like the last question might be that many people have noticed that the community, especially in Sangamon County, most of the people they talk to do want to help. And they're asking questions around, how can I support Black and brown businesses? How can I be a part of the conversation? And really, how can I change some systemic long-term processes that have been put in place to really hold the community back? So for those folks that maybe don't have a business, maybe it's not right to send them to the Black Chamber, how can we have them help just in their day-to-day, who they're having conversations with that could impact and support the Black community and success, economic success of the Black community?
Well, I think one of the most important things you can do, we all have a financial institution, correct? You know, and one of the things we can look at is what initiatives, right, that financial institution champions, right? Are they given to Black and brown communities? Are they offering assistance to low-income families at a significant rate, right? You can ask for that information, and it's readily available. You know, what are they championing? And then if your bank isn't championing, your financial institution isn't championing the Black and brown cause, then you can challenge them, right? You can challenge them. In most cases, the president and vice president of the financial institution is going to be responsive because they want your money. And if they're still not willing to listen or champion those issues, then you can move your monies to a financial institution that will get behind the Black and brown community. So that's something simple. I mean, most of us have bank accounts, you know, so that's something you can do. Even if you can't give money, right, directly, you could actually say to your banking institution, look, I want you to start championing Black and brown issues. If you don't, I'm going to move my money. And, you know, some people have more leverage than others because they deposit a lot more money into that financial institution. But a collaborative effort built around that, we're talking about hundreds and thousands of dollars, maybe even, millions.
I love that, Dominic. All great responses, especially when you think about the nonprofit sector and the amount of influence on those nonprofit boards about who they give funding to and how they disperse that money. A great way to influence right there is to make sure that they have perspective on their board and that they have perspective in the conversation. Absolutely. So I just want to thank you so much for joining us today and being a part of the Building Board Diversity Initiative. If you haven't heard about that, go to the Forefront website and search Building Board Diversity there. You can see that we have a pledge for nonprofits and employers to take a pledge of commitment to not only diversify boards, but to have a volunteer time off policy in the workplace so that employees can go and serve on boards with a focus, of course, on the brown and Black population. So Dominic has provided his information in case you want to get in touch with him. Make sure that you are supporting the Springfield Black Chamber of Commerce, and we will have more webinars like this one available at no cost. So thank you so much, Dominic, for being a part of this, and we hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Rachel, and thanks everyone for tuning in.